All right, uppers, here we go. So on the first one, wet on dry, okay? This is where you've got the most control over your pigment and how you paint, okay? So I want you to just go ahead, select a color, it doesn't matter, and charge that color. So that is a term that watercolorists use whenever you're adding water to your pigment, or vice versa, you're adding pigment to your water on your paper that you've already painted on. So you're charging it, okay? So wet on dry, what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna paint a bit of a blob. Okay, so I'm just gonna let myself paint a shape. Okay, and I'm actually gonna paint two separate shapes because I want to show you how you dry blend as well. So I'm gonna give you one here, and then I'm gonna do one down here that I'm also gonna be using another color with, okay? So with dry blending, you wanna make sure that so I'm kind of doing two techniques at one time here. And you need to work on it while it's still wet, okay? So I'm gonna clean my brush off here, and I'm going to dry it out on my paper towel, and then I'm gonna come back in. So I've kind of dried my brush off quite a bit. It's still a little bit wet. And then I want to expand out that area that I had already painted. Okay, and I'm gonna keep coming back in to make sure that I don't have any water puddles. So what I've done here is I did the wet on dry technique, and then I did the dry blending technique with it. So I'm going to do that again with my second blob, my second shape here. So I used a little bit of water to kind of charge that and kind of wake it back up. And then I'm going to select one of my other colors to put on there as well, to kind of get a color to color dry on or wet on dry technique. So I'm going to lay my other color down here. It's really, really intense. Then I'm going to clean and dry my brush off on that one side. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of let that commingle a little bit. This kind of technique will show up a little later too. Okay, so that's how you can come in and you can blend through. You can create your blending techniques already when it's wet on dry. Okay? Okay. The next one is wet on wet. So what I'm gonna do for that one is I wanna make sure that my water is completely, or my brush is completely clean. So no pigment at all. I'm gonna have it loaded up with water, and I'm going to paint kind of within this whole space. Just paint with water. Okay? Kind of in that whole area. I wanted to have a really nice sheen of water in there. I don't want a whole lot of puddles. So if you're getting puddles, you can kind of dry your brush out and then touch it to the areas where the water's pooling to kind of pull that water out. Then I'm going to grab a color and charge it up with water. And I'm going to just kind of touch this color down the middle of this swatch. Okay, and you guys can see that it's should be slowly spreading. If it's not spreading as much as you want, you clean your brush off and you just can pick up a little bit more water and go along the edges. And just help that color kind of spread with more water. Okay, kind of like that. I'm going to pick up another color also and just put kind of little spots of that going through. I don't want to watch that kind of blend out. Can come back in and add some water on top to push that second color through. Okay, so you can do just a lot of little touchies, like you guys can see up here at my top that color is really running together. I'm starting to get some color mixing there. I didn't go back on top of this dot and it's staying fairly stable. So again, I can also come back and clean up my pooling if I've got a little too much pooling. Can kind of dry my brush and just kind of lift up. That's going to be a technique we're going to do here in a little bit too. I can kind of lift up those areas that I feel that are too wet. Kind of help move that color around. All right. Okay. How's my speed? Am I going too fast? Too slow? Speed up a little bit? Okay. Okay. Another color. I'm going in with my blue. And I want to go a little lighter, so I'm trying to make sure that I add a bit more water to this rather than pigment. And flat wash, I just want it to be nice, smooth color all the way through. So I'm going to try and paint this whole section. And I want it to be flat color all the way through. So I think I've got a little bit of crossing over here. Okay, so I'm going to start looking at where is it pooling more. I've got more pooling over on the right hand side. So I'm going to clean my brush off there. I'm going to kind of run it along the edge to pick up that extra watercolor and then dry it off on my paper towel. So this is where coming in and controlling your watercolor is really important. So already here, I'm working to make sure that I don't have any pooling in areas that I don't want it. I want it just a nice flat wash. So if you take out too much, you can just go back and add a little more. Okay. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead to glazing and transparent layering because I need those to dry by the time that I come back. So what I'm going to do for transparent layering, I'm going to take a color. Oops, my brush wasn't clean all the way, so now I kind of contaminated it. Okay, with transparent layering, I'm just going to make a strip of color going down the middle. Kind of like that. And then with glazing, I'm going to use a couple different shapes. Okay, so for glazing, I want like a really light color to start with, so I'm using a lot of water in this one. And it's hard to describe what the shape that I'm going to make, so I'm just going to show you guys. So kind of like a arrow fletching, kind of like the end of an arrow shape. But then I'm also going to top that off there like that. Yeah. Okay, kind of like that. And then my next one is I'm going to kind of make a cylinder shape. Or just a square, or you can do a rectangle, that's fine. Just want to keep it light. Okay, so I want those to dry by the time that I come back. So I'm going to kind of come in and lift up some of this extra watercolor that's pooling there. Okay. All right. Okay, going back to graded wash, we're going to do wet on wet technique on that one. So that one we're going to start with water down first. And then this one, we're probably going to have to use gravity to help us with this one. So I'm going to do this, well, I was just about to say I was going to do it opposite, but I'm not. Okay, so graded wash, I want to pick up pigment. I've already put water down. And then up at the very top, I want to lay that pigment down. Just kind of in a strip like that. Okay, and you can kind of start seeing how the pigment is spreading. So it's already kind of doing its job. So I just want to put the pigment down there first for right now. And then I want to just clean my brush out. And then I kind of want to help move that pigment on downwards. So I'm just kind of grabbing my brush and just kind of pulling that pigment down, to about halfway or so. So kind of turning it into a flat wash a little bit. Then I'm going to clean my brush off again. And then I'm going to go just kind of up along the edge of that with more water. And then kind of pull that pigment. And now I'm going to use gravity. So I'm going to pick up my paper. I'm going to tilt it to where that color starts running down. Okay, then I want to kind of control it at the same time. I don't want a whole lot of pigment kind of pulling through on the sides here. Okay, so your goal is to go from color to pretty almost like clear water in a nice gradual fade. So you may have to come back in, add some heavier pigment at the top. And then again, just kind of use your clean water to pull that down and through. Okay, so this one kind of takes a little while. So down here at the bottom, I just I'm wiping my brush off on my paper towel quite a bit and coming back in and just kind of taking that out. Okay. Variegated wash is the same thing that we just did. You just do it with two colors that blend together. So wet on wet technique again. Since you're working on hers instead of on my stuff. Mm. Oh, okay. Yep. All right, guys. So same thing here that we just did. You just do one color at the top. And then another color at the bottom. So here it's just kind of working through your water amount, how much you're controlling the amount of water that you're working with. Okay, so hopefully I can get kind of a color blend. Going on in the middle. So basically my main point of controlling is just making sure that my brush is dry. And then just coming back in and lifting that extra pigment that I don't need out. Okay, kind of like that. We're going to come back to glazing and transparent layering, but let's just finish the hard edge, soft edge, and dry brush. They don't take very long, okay? So hard edge is just wet on dry technique, and you're just getting very, very clean. Crisp lines when you paint. Soft edge, you start like a hard edge line, and then it's almost time to go. Would you be able to hold it? So then with soft edge, you lay that down like hard edge, and then you come back with water. And you can even make your water go out further than what you originally painted. And then that'll really start to soften up things. Like that. And then dry brush, you guessed it. Just going with a dry brush and kind of straight into your hard pigment instead of stuff that's been mixed up. You can use that to get different textural techniques on there. Okay, we'll do glazing and transparent layering tomorrow along with all of our fancy stuff. And then I'll just make sure that I bring in our fruit tomorrow just to be ready. So if we get done with this quickly, then we can get our images done, okay?